We're delighted to welcome you to the UK Boarding School Exhibition webinar, and we hope that you'll find this invaluable information in preparing for a visit to the exhibition, but also understanding a lot more about a boarding education and what it has to offer. So we're going to start with Peter Green, who has been a headmaster for over 20 years. He's currently headmaster of Gordonstoun School in Scotland, and he's going to give some experiences and talk generally about a boarding education. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. Very nice to meet you all virtually. Hopefully, I'll have the pleasure of meeting you in Dubai in a week and a half, which will be great fun. I just want to talk to you about boarding schools. I've been very fortunate in my career that only once did I teach in a day school for 2 years, and that was in London. And since then, I've been working in full boarding schools, and I've been a headmaster for 19 years. I'm on my third headship. I was initially at a school in Sussex, so I know the London market very well. Then I was at a school in the Midlands, so I know the Midlands market really well. And now I've returned back north to beautiful Morayshire to be back in Scotland for my third headship at Gordonstoun. So you're all thinking about boarding, and it's very, very important that you're in the Middle East, that you think about boarding very, very carefully, and you don't get fooled by glossy brochures, glossy facilities, and all of these things that you will encounter when you visit some of the top and good boarding schools in the UK. It's a bit like buying a house. There are non-negotiables when you buy a house. So you're going to have to look at things. Are the schools single sex, all male or all female schools? Is that something that you're looking for? Okay. The number of all boys schools, of course, in the UK is significantly reduced, but there are a significant number of all girls schools, and there are a variety of different schools within that context. Are they co-ed? In other words, are there boys and girls in the school? Do they start at the age of 11? Do they start at the age of 13? What suits? What proportion of day students do they have within their boarding environment? Do the day students actually have a boarding ethos in their school? Because there's an awful lot of occasions that you can visit schools that profess to be a strong boarding ethos, and day students leave at 4:30 in the afternoon while the boarders remain. And that leads to quite a split within the school community. What type of school are you looking for? Where will your child thrive? Will it be a big school, or will it be a small school? What does a small school mean? I always say that if a school gets beyond 800, it becomes extremely difficult for the senior team and the head in particular to get to know everybody. And that's quite important within a school context as well, because it gives a real sense of belonging. What interests do your children have? What sports do they like to play? So, for example, do they like to play rugby football? There are schools that are fabulous at rugby football, but there are caveats with that as well, and I'll come back to that. Do they play soccer, as I call it, the round ball game? Is that something that rocks their boat? Is that something that they want to do? What about our girls in terms of netball, lacrosse, boys and girls in terms of horse riding, and also other co-curricular offerings like music? Do you have a son or daughter who's terrific at music and wants to sing in a choir, be part of a smaller orchestra or a large orchestra, and will they be given the opportunities there? Are they good at art? Okay, so it's all very, very important for you as parents to start to look at different schools to see what they're offering. And fundamentally, you've got to ask yourself, what does your child need to thrive? Because you want to create and find a school that is home from home, and that's important. There are, of course, schools with very strong religious denominations within the UK as well. High Anglo-Catholic schools, non-denominational schools, Roman Catholic schools, and it's important that you bring that into your consideration as well. Location's always fun. Can I just say that London is not Great Britain and it's not England. London, you can arrive in London and within 2.5 hours you can be up in Morayshire at Inverness Airport, and a short hop and a jump to Gordonstoun and to other schools as well. So does your school have to be close to an airport? Does it have to be a town school, or would you like a big city school and all the aspects and issues that come with big city schools? Don't be fooled, of course, small town schools as well always have some interesting moments between the town and the gown. So look beyond when you actually visit the school and see what the relationship is, and Google what is the town and gown relationship like at some schools, like say Uppingham or Oundle, or even Rugby School. You'll find the answers quite fascinating as well. Are you looking for a famous five, be very British here, type experience of lashings of ginger beer and in the countryside where you can have some amazing adventures free from the pressures of living in some of the big cities or even the smaller towns? We like to think at Gordonstoun there's lots of lashings of ginger beer because we are a country school, and expeditions and sailing and skiing and mountaineering and all these great things our students can do. So it's important to consider the location. What will suit your child? Do they need a buzzy environment? Do you feel as though your child would be better nurtured in a quieter school, which is smaller? I'd also look at ethos, and that's quite important. You can look at boarding schools and read about their ethos, and you will read things like all round. What does that actually mean? Is that a school for all rounders, or is that a school that is all round? In other words, if it's a school for all rounders, I'll tell you that's quite an interesting one. I've only met 2 all rounders in my life. Okay, and if you come to the Dubai event, I'll explain who the person was, and you'll understand that he is an all rounder. And then I can tell you about another one. Or is the school all round? In other words, it's a school that can offer something to everybody. Okay, or more importantly, if you're brilliant at art, you can go to that school and thrive. If you're brilliant at music, you can thrive. If you're mediocre at music, you can go to that school and thrive. Is it a school that is for everybody? Questions for you to ask. Also have a look at schools in terms of the style of feeding that they have in boarding. Do they have central feeding? In other words, one big central dining room. Or do they have house dining rooms? Okay, both have distinct disadvantages and both have real disadvantages. So if you go to a school, that has a very strong house dimension, that has what we call house feeding. In other words, they eat in their house. So breakfast is with your year group, lunch is with your year group, and supper is usually mixed. That is an interesting thing. It's brilliant. It builds brilliant house spirit. You get a real sense of belonging when you're in a school like that, in a house like that. But if your son or daughter doesn't like the people they're with, they can never escape them during the course of their supper times and lunch times, when you sometimes need a release. The other element as well with central feeding in a dining room, and I can say this because I've got experience of both, that actually in a school where there's central feeding, in general, the food is much, much better. And it also means that you're able to flit between different social groups and different others, which allows you to thrive as a young person. So look at house feeding. Don't listen to the spin about how brilliant it is. Look beyond that. What's your child like? Are they gregarious enough to be able to cope in that environment and find their own space? Again, the same with central feeding. Can they walk into a dining room and find their space too? Not finally, because there's a lot of other things I could talk about, academically selective. All of you want your sons and daughters to do extremely well at school. But as a little bit of advice for you, your son or daughter will not get into school on the school's average results. They will get into school on the results that your child achieves. And that's very, very important. So I've taught in very, very selective schools. I've taught in schools which are non-selective. In a very selective school, you sometimes find extremely talented youngsters who are in set 4. Okay, and they're all going to get 9s and in their GCSEs and a flock of A stars in their A levels. But what they don't get, okay, unless they're completely top of the world in terms of their academic ability, they don't get that specialist treatment of being scholars or being considered to be some of the best academic students within a school context. And they can get a bit lost because remember, a school will sell to you everything they do at the top end and how brilliant it is. And they'll also sell to you how good they are from an SEN perspective, special educational needs. But the vast majority of every single school sits in the middle. So ask the question, how are the people in the middle? How are the boys and the girls in the middle? How are they looked after? What makes the difference for them? How are they allowed to, really develop develop to their own strengths, follow their own interests. And that leads me, importantly, check pastoral care. It's absolutely crucial. Okay, ask the teams in schools or do your research. What does the team look like? What does pastoral care look like within the boarding house, within the wider environment? And how do the senior management team ensure that each child thrives? And the best way I can describe that is a really brilliant school at pastoral care has a pastoral spider's web of pastoral care, of significant numbers engaged in the life of the child in the school, which means if they fall through one of the pieces of the web, they will be caught by somebody else. And that's very important for you to look at. You'll also be a little bit worried about boarding as well. So I'll use an example of my daughter. She was about 4, and we were in a boarding house when I was a housemaster at a very famous boarding school, which is a 7-day-a-week school and is absolutely terrific. And believe it or not, it has house feeding too, and it's a terrific school. And there was a young boy there. He was 11 years old, and he was saying to his mum and dad that he was a little bit nervous about boarding, and he wasn't sure how he was going to cope. And so my little daughter, who was 4-year-old, behind the sofa playing with whatever toy she was playing with at the time, piped up and without even putting her head above and said, "Don't worry about it. It's just a big sleepover, except you go to sleep." Okay. So then in some respects, that describes a bit of boarding, that you do go to sleep, you're with your chums. And I'll be quite serious here as well. And I mean this, that horrid things happen in people's lives. Horrid things happen when they're at school. Horrid things happen when when you're not at school. We always say that actually, if something horrid is really going to happen to you, pray it happens when you're at boarding school, because you will be surrounded by that spider's web of pastoral care. Incredible friends, people that you have really grown to love, who love you and know you for all your quirks, your quirkiness, and just who you are as an individual. And I use that an example. The first person I spoke to when I went to boarding school, my parents were wonderful, but they sent me 3 weeks after term started, and I walked into art. That was my first subject, and I didn't know anybody at all. And the chap I spoke to was called Angus, and we had a discussion about art. And then lo and behold, Angus became my best man. We are proper friends. We still communicate now and again. Even my lovely wife says, "Well, when you two to get together, I may as well leave because we're great chums." And I still meet up with my chums so many years later. And that's one of the great advantages you'll get from boarding. So I'm happy to answer any questions just now, some of the non-negotiables, and I'll speak a little bit more when I come to Dubai to the event. But I'm happy to answer questions and see whether or not I can give you a good answer. Don't ask me which school you should absolutely go to. The answer is plainly, obviously, Gordonstoun and Morayshire. It's only about 25, 30 minutes away from Inverness Airport, and it is a very, very special place with great, great youngsters. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I don't see any questions, but we'll ask the attendees at the end as well if they've got any questions, and we can relay them on to you if you're not staying. Okay, so moving on now. We're now going to talk. My name's Sara Sparling from Anderson Education, and I'm going to be talking about some of the differences that you should expect between the school that your children go to now in the Gulf and a UK boarding school. So you would expect smaller class sizes up to about 20 students. For the sixth form, that's when they're aged 16 to 18, there may be even less depending on the subject, whether it's an A level or an IB subject. There may be only 10 or 12 students. So really good one-to-one teaching with the staff, a small group, which really enhances the learning. You'd also get a longer school day, so from 8:30 in the morning till 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon. And then after that, there's a huge range of after-school activities, extracurricular activities and clubs, from beekeeping to scuba diving. Boarding is a very structured way of life, and this suits a lot of children. They know exactly what they're going to be doing when in the day and in the week. It's full on, it's very busy. So apart from your long school day, and after the end of the school day, you do extracurricular activities or clubs or you might have training, or you might have a music lesson. You have something to eat for a snack, and then everybody does their homework together, which they call prep. On Saturday, some schools have Saturday morning school and then sports fixtures in the afternoons, or they have trips. So you can see a very, very busy, structured week. I think one of the great things about a boarding education is that the facilities are available for boarders to use in the evenings and at weekends. So if your passion is football or swimming or tennis, you can go and use the facilities evenings and weekends. And you think in the UK in the summer, when it's light till gone 9 o'clock at night, the school playing fields will be busy with children organising their own, kicking a football around and using those facilities. I'm always impressed when I'm shown around a school and in the art department, the A-level students, so that's the age 16 to 18s, have their own little workstation. You imagine if you're passionate about art, that you can go back in the evening or the weekend, you can add another half hour. If the lesson had ended, you're not quite finished or got to the point you wanted to be able to go back and touch up your art, is a lovely option for them. We've got schools coming to the exhibition. We've got Ashford School in Kent in the south, who's got an excellent art department. They do fine art, textiles, digital imaging, and ceramics. We've got schools like King's Canterbury, who have an arts festival. So it's not just if you're a performing arts student, but actually if you'd like to be involved in stage design or lighting. And many of these schools have 200 to 300 seater theatres in them. The school encourages a home from home environment, so teenagers are able to live a normal teenage life, whether it's relaxing with friends, a Sunday brunch, they don't have to get up to go to breakfast, and they're with their friends 24/7. You make friends for life. As Peter said, I was at boarding school. I got together in the summer. 6 of us went to Brighton for 2 nights. So you get to know people really well and you forge really good friendships. And again, as Peter said, pastoral care, the support and well-being and safety of the students is utmost in these schools. They foster a strong sense of community between students and staff to create a supportive and nurturing environment. A holistic approach ensures that students feel happy, safe and valued, equipping them with the tools to navigate the emotional and physical complexities of a teenage life, which we've all been through and we know what it holds for us. I think academic support, again, is another area that boarding schools excel, because if you're in prep or homework in the evening, which is going to be supervised maybe by a member of staff that you've been in school with, it's going to be, you're going to have peers from your class who are there doing their homework. So if there's something you're not quite sure about, you've got people to go to for help. They hold subject clinics, you'll have a personal tutor. And the teachers, you get to know the teachers really well, because apart from teaching you in class and perhaps doing duty over lunch or an evening meal, they're going to be there supporting your son or daughter when they're on a football or a rugby pitch. Research has shown that the environment children learn in has a profound impact on their engagement, and the experience stays with students long after they've left. I remember my daughter, she was at a college down on the south coast, absolutely stunning. And then when we looked at universities, she said, I'm not sure that these surroundings are going to stimulate me as much as the surroundings I've been at school in. Our schools are rich in history and traditions, which are difficult to replicate. So there are an increasing number of named, very good British named schools opening up throughout the Gulf. But when you visited a school in the UK, you will feel the difference. It's something that's intangible, and they really are very special places. Another area that for families, they're choosing the option of a boarding school is if they've got a child that is talented or passionate about a sport. Schools that have got academies, they've got specialist coaching and training. They give guidance on health and nutrition. They do performance analysis. They have competitive matches and excellent facilities and first-class coaching and training. And you're getting that alongside a good academic education. So at the exhibition, we have got Colford, which have got tennis, golf, swimming, football, and dance academies. And we've got Bromsgrove, which is a leading school for sport. As with most schools, facilities are impressive. But some of these schools have 9-hole golf courses. So Worth is joining us in Saudi and Dubai, and they have a 9-hole golf course in their school campus. We've got a school that's got their own equestrian centre, King's Taunton, they'll be joining us. We've got schools with farms and schools that are in unique locations across the UK. So they're able to offer the students forest schools, outdoor adventure, high ropes, kayaking, mountain bike riding, bushcraft, wilderness and survival skills, and water sports. So many opportunities that your child can benefit from. The adventures and the challenges that are provided by these schools enable students to develop self-awareness, resilience, decision-making, and team-working skills. They're aware of the people and the surroundings around them. And what better training and preparation for your future when you go on to the next level, whether you go straight to work or you go to university or you do an apprentice. And this is something that most families that we've worked with, that we're helping them through the process, they come to us after the first half term and they say he or she has grown in confidence, they're more independent, they're really valued as an individual. And another strength of a UK boarding school is that they are inclusive and offer opportunities for all. It doesn't matter if you're not an A team student. It doesn't matter if you're a D team student. It doesn't matter if you've never played in a team before. They have a culture of encouraging students to have a go. You don't need to be the best, but you need to have a go. You need to try. Thank you for this. And now I'm going to pass on to Nikki Harlow, our education consultant based in the UK, who's going to talk to you about preparing for your visit to the exhibition. Thank you, Nikki.
Hello, everybody. Really, when you come to the exhibition, the best thing you can do is take the advantage of having so many people there in front of you who are happy to talk to you for as long as you like about their schools and tell you absolutely everything that you might want to know. First of all, a good place to start is actually thinking about the point of entry that you want your child to go. I mean, some send them as young, well, some send them as young as 7 years old. But you can look at year 7, year 9, year 10, or even year 12, or you can look at every year in between and then perhaps change your mind. And eventually they'll go for the sixth form, which is how quite a lot of families do that. But think about it before, when would be the best place for your child to join? Peter mentioned location. Location is important. If you have family and you like them to be close to family, that's one thing. But if really you haven't got anything that ties you to an area anymore, be open to all areas of the UK. Transport links in the UK are great, and getting to the airport is really easy, and schools will actually mostly provide transport to the airport. So when you're first looking at a school, you're thinking, must be near an airport, must be easy to get back to them. But once they've done that journey a couple of times, they won't even want you to come with them. They'll want to do that by themselves because they know they'll be picked up at the airport with their friends and then go straight into school. So don't be tied to thinking we must be in a certain area. Everywhere is pretty easy to get to in the UK, and that could be the perfect fit for your school. There are lots of different types of schools that Peter mentioned. Have a think about those. Single sex is always a controversial thing for some people, but it is scientifically proven that children do learn better in a single sex environment. But as we all know, the world is co-ed. So it's making that choice, which is the best choice for your child. Again, looking at the curriculum when they're older, would they be better with A level or would they be better with the IB? That's something only you can answer and know which is best for your child. Again, a large school, a small school, an academically pressurized school, city, rural, all these things are an option to think about. And you know your child best. If your child's lived in an urban environment their entire life, will there be shocks to the core to have sheep in the field next to them? Will they be frightened by having no streetlights? So these are things you need to think about, which would be the best fit for your child. Make the most of having a school rep in front of you. Speak with as many schools as you possibly can, and don't dismiss a school because you haven't heard of it, your friends haven't heard of it. It could be the right fit for your child. Ask the schools anything that's on your mind. You don't have to talk about just about academic things, which universities are best, what about their results. Ask them anything, even if you think it's a little bit trivial or a little bit silly. If you're unfamiliar with boarding, ask the schools to explain to you how boarding works. What happens when your child needs a doctor? What happens if they need a dentist? What happens if they need a cuddle? I mean, it's all these things that if you're unfamiliar with boarding, you might not know quite what's going to happen. And it's something that a school might say that makes you click and think, yes, this is the right place for my child. I can see them there. And again, we would always talk to the schools at the exhibition, but think about then visiting the school in the UK, because that's really the best way to get the very best idea of whether they would be a fit for you. Ask them how it would work with the point of contact. Who would be the person that you would speak to at the school? Would it be the house parent? Would it be their house tutor? So knowing all these things and knowing that there is, like Peter said, the web around them is helpful in choosing a school and knowing how it all works. We do be clear on anything you don't want. If you have a deal breaker, you must have girls rugby, you must have cricket. These are these things that you should put there up front, because if a school can't help you at the exhibition, they're likely to say, no, we actually don't have that, but go and speak to them over there. They've got that. So it's really knowing what you want and what you don't want to a certain extent. I mean, if your child has a passion for sport or drama or music, then make sure that the school that you're looking at would be able to fulfill their passion to the level that they would like to. And be honest about your child. There's no point in saying that that they're going to be a doctor in Cambridge when they're not. And don't give them interests that they haven't got. They're not going to speak at length on the economy of the UK. They're going to talk about other things. So be honest about what your child wants and the interests that they have. I mean, we as consultants will be there at the exhibition and we'll be able to give you lots of help and advice in schools that are there at the exhibition, or if there's something particular that you want, we'd also be able to advise you on other schools in the UK that would be able to fulfill that for you. But talking to the schools in the exhibition, even if you're thinking, oh, perhaps we were looking for this location, by talking to the schools in the exhibition, it will give you such an overview of boarding. And the families that come to our exhibition, sometimes they come with their children and the children look a bit apprehensive and they're not thinking, oh, don't know about boarding. And they come out absolutely beaming with arms full of bags and things telling them about the school. And it's changed their whole view on boarding. So take advantage of speaking to as many people as you possibly can, talking to the consultants if you've got any particular queries. We do, if you can, bring the children with you, because the schools will be delighted to talk to them. They want to speak with your children and find out what they're interested in and allow them to talk about themselves, their interests and their aspirations. Please do register for the exhibition in advance, because it will save you time on arrival. The less time you spend registering, the more time you can spend with the schools. We look forward to seeing you at the exhibition.
Thank you,
Thank
Nikki.
you.
And now I'd like to introduce you to Sara Lewis, who is our representative for Anderson Education, based in Dubai. And she has personal experience of finding an amazing boarding school for her 3 daughters. Thank you, Sara.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm Sara Lewis, but actually it says on my screen Sara Sparling, so we have the same names today for this Zoom. So I've been an expatriate for 27 years here in the Middle East. Moved to Saudi Arabia in 1998, and then we moved to Bahrain, and then Kenya for 3 years, Kuwait for 4 years, Bahrain for 11 years, and Dubai for 4 years. So we have 3 daughters, and whilst they were extremely lucky to be educated all over the Middle East and in Africa as well, they all attended a UK boarding school, full boarding school, in year 9. So that's age 13. So they all attended there, and they've all finished now. And we celebrated them all finishing at the same school in July 2024. So having attended boarding school ourselves, my husband and I were absolutely certain that we wanted to give the children the gift of boarding school, and absolutely no regrets with that one. So the girls really knew that they wanted to go because they knew that we wanted to provide that stability of education, having lived in so many different countries, but also that we'd made our strong lifelong friends before we even started expatriate life. So they were all on board and desperate to go. So what about the process then of choosing the right school? Well, our girls are all very different, and it's not unusual that children are very different in the same family. So I started off by looking at, even though I went to a boarding school, I knew what I was looking for, but even so, I started looking at the league tables. I started looking at the results and the facilities. And then I got down the line and I realized that all boarding schools offer superb facilities, as well as individual tuition and guidance to help the children achieve their grades that they need to reflecting the best of their abilities. But we wanted a well-rounded, friendly school, not an academic hothouse, but one that was, had enough academic rigor. And we didn't want a school in a big city because we hadn't lived in a big city with them. We thought we might want co-ed because there were 3 girls, and we had been in a co-ed environment in the schools previous to that. But we also, when we got down the line, we actually realized that we wanted full in. And I always say that, and what I mean is when they start the term, there are 3 weeks, and then there's a weekend, and then everybody goes home. So in some schools, the weekends are flexible. So you might find that the person in the next bedroom or bed next to you is actually going away for that weekend, and you're staying staying in the house. I mean, there's plenty to do, but we wanted that full boarding experience, in or out. So that's something that I hadn't considered before. We the pastoral care side of it also became very, very apparent, and it really, really struck a chord with us. So pastoral care is everything that our boarding school offered, and it provides, not only a fully rounded education and nurtured the girls, but it brought out their very best individual qualities and aptitudes and personalities because they were happy. And if they're not happy, then you're not going to get the best out of the boarding school experience. So that was the most important thing. And it's children, they're under so much pressure with what they have to do in their curriculum, everything. They're going through different mental, emotional, and social development stages, and different challenges along the way. So that was highly important. So I realized that as a parent, and I really wanted that. Also the communication, I wanted to know that they were okay. So I trusted that the school would definitely provide the best communication between myself and my daughters, and myself and the house mistress, for instance, or the tutor. And that they definitely delivered on that. I wasn't disappointed at all. So those were the things that really mattered: the pastoral care and that communication. But as I say, those things I really realized at the end of my journey, because at the start it was all looking at many different schools, but it's those small things that really mattered. For instance, as well, the girls return back to the house for lunch. In some schools, they have a large dining hall, and everybody joins at the same time, obviously. But it was so nice that the girls were able to go home for lunch, and that really liked that about the school. So It's the little things that you don't think about that really matter. So thank you very much, and I'll pass back to you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Please let me know, does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself or you can type them in the chat. And while we're waiting for that, we just hope that you have found this interesting and informative, and that it's going to help you prepare for your visit to the exhibition. And we think we've been doing this exhibition twice a year since 2006. We've got an excellent group of schools coming with us this time. And it's just a great opportunity for you to start your research. So yes, Satanik, if you would like to.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, nice to see you again. Quick question about the school visits. You know that I've been in communication regarding school visits in Jersey. I just wanted to understand what others' views are. What's the best timing? So during the week when they are in school, or weekends to see how the boarders doing, or both, or what's the best way? What's the best
Well,
timing?
we always say you need to see a school in action. So you don't visit in the holidays, don't visit after school time. It's seeing how the children interact with the teachers, with each other. You know, that's going to reflect a lot on the ethos of the school. So definitely in term time in the school day.
A school visit usually takes a couple of hours. You would meet with a member of the senior leadership team, you'd meet with somebody from boarding, somebody from admissions, and have a tour of the school. Often you'd be shown around the school by a student, which is great because you can ask them absolutely anything. They have no agenda, and you can ask them anything that you like, and they will give you an honest answer.
They're going to be the ones that truthfully tell you what the food's like, and what they do after school, and those sort of activities. So yeah, as long as you're in the school day, and as Nikki said, you know, it might be an hour and a half to 2 hours, so you're going to see quite a range of things. Sometimes you might be invited to join them for lunch. But we don't really, some people ask about sleepovers, but a lot of that is about the school putting trust in the group of students that are going to be there. So I think I know not to do too many school visits, 3 or 4 in a week is good, otherwise you get overwhelmed. But it's also good to have something to compare one school with another 2 or 3 schools.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, has anyone else got any questions? No. Okay, well, we thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday the 8th. And if you've got any friends that are interested, please do encourage them to register and to come along and join us. There's no commitment. If it's just your first step in finding out, that's absolutely fine. And we have got a recording of this webinar, so if you've got friends that would like to catch up and couldn't join us today, then we can send that out to them. So just like to thank you all very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in Khobar, Riyadh or Dubai on the 4th, 6th or 8th of February.